Hi, welcome back to
Hi.
another episode. We're so excited today. We have a guest, my supervisor, who gives me great supervision, and another therapist in our community, Julia Israelski. And today we're going to be talking about Love Actually. So
Ugh.
they've both seen it. I have not until now. I did watch it for the
You
for the
hadn't seen
podcast.
this movie?
No,
Portia, oh my God, how? It's like one of the
I
best
don't know.
movies of all time.
There's so many people in it. It's like
I
amazing.
I
know.
know. Oh, Portia, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I feel like this podcast has been like a journey for me to explore new
Classics?
exciting genres and classics. But all right, so I'm going to share a little bit about one of our co-hosts today, Julia, before we get started, so you can know a little bit about her and all the amazing things that she does. So Julia Israelski is a licensed clinical social worker, certified EMDR practitioner, and certified perinatal mental health professional with nearly 20 years of
Ooh.
clinical experience. She currently has a private practice in Connecticut where she specializes in interpersonal trauma, eating disorders, perinatal mental health, and parental stress. Prior to being in private practice, Julia was a clinical supervisor and oversaw the trauma program at a local community health center. Additionally, she has experience conducting forensic interviews and volunteering as a sexual assault crisis counselor. Most recently, she has been trying to spread her wheel of identity, which she created, which is really cool, to depathologize. Oh my gosh,
Apologize.
depathologize. Thank you.
Depathologize. That's a big word.
Wow. Yeah, I can't seem to get it right. People's attempts at surviving these stressful times and to increase compassion for ourselves and others. So, welcome.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome, welcome.
So, Love Actually, 2003. It's a little old, amazing cast. Where should
Would
we
you call it
start?
a rom-com?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It was kind of like coming out in the era of rom-coms, I think. We haven't covered a rom-com yet, except maybe Legally Blonde.
Hmm.
But I love this movie. I'm like in shock over here. I'm having an acute stress response to Portia never having seen this movie. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
I know. It was the cast. I mean, I know that we'll get to our themes, but the cast was incredible. Like,
Yeah,
Alan Rickman, R.I.P. Harry
I
Potter,
know.
Snape. Love
Snape.
seeing him, even though he's like not a great character
He's
in
good at
the
playing the not
movie.
great
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, like villain era, I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then Emma Thompson, like
Yeah.
She's amazing
amazing.
in
I
it.
was shocked to see her. Who else did you guys notice, or who else do you like
Liam
to see in it?
Neeson.
Yeah.
I always love Liam Neeson, Laura Linney, Colin Firth,
Mhm.
just like Keira Knightley.
Yeah.
And the little boy and the little girl were just adorable. Sam and
Mm-hmm.
Olivia, right? Was her name?
Um,
I'm having a
I don't think it's
no.
Olivia.
I don't
Oh
know.
no, did
I
I get
can't
the
think
name
of it.
wrong?
I have it written down. Well,
Oh,
I don't know. Anyway, little
my
girl who
Google.
has a great voice,
I'll find it.
wonderful singer.
Yeah. Oh, her real name's Olivia. Her real
Oh,
name's
okay,
Olivia Olson.
gotcha.
Anyway. But no, it is an all-star cast.
Joanne. Sorry.
Joanna, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. And then, of course, we have Bill Nighy playing Billy Mack, which we just talked about him in a recent podcast episode about the best exotic marigold hotel. He was also in that movie. So it was like fun for me to see him again in this movie, but in like a totally different character. And I just loved him as like the aging pop star.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection, so that's good. All right, so who should we talk about couples? Should we talk about themes? What do we think? What's a good
Well, I think,
place?
like the whole premise of the movie is love, right? And I love how the movie begins and ends with those scenes at the Heathrow Airport, which I believe are all real. I don't think any of that's acting. I'm pretty sure that's all real. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but I think it was like 2021, I believe, Britain like recreated those scenes to talk about like the pandemic, kind of people being able to travel again and see their loved
Huh.
ones. And I know, right? Like
That's
it
what I
really
see.
gets you. And it was just interesting to watch all of that love. And it's just, I don't know, like Hugh Grant, we forgot to mention him. Like his his like in like the words he says at the beginning are just so beautiful.
Totally.
And I feel like it's just really timely to be talking about this movie and just the message in light of what's going on in the world right now, I think.
That was one of the things I
Um,
wrote down, was like that quote in the beginning, and like can't remember what it was right now, but it's something about like going through. Most people see like the hard and the pain and the bad, but there's always love and there's always good, and yeah, I think it's super important right now with everything going on.
right, to keep thinking about. And I mean, I think he says love actually is all around. And it reminds me of that Mr. Rogers quote, like in
Absolutely.
times of
Look for
stress,
others.
look for the helpers. Right, exactly. And so I just thought it was really poignant that we're talking about this movie kind of at this time in the month of December as I think about Christmas and the holidays and families. And I think this movie does a good job kind of capturing people at different phases of life, all the complex, like interpersonal dynamics and relationships.
And so
And
many
this,
different forms of love, right? Like there's
yeah,
friendship love, parent-child love, romantic love, like just so many different forms of love, which I thought was great.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Which we'll all
I
see over the holidays,
whether we want
potentially.
to or not.
Yeah. So one thing that I had noticed, and I was kind of, texting a little bit with Julia, and I don't know, Katrina, if you thought of this as watching it again, but like, I was just line after line, point after point of like a lot of fat phobia.
I
Like,
thought that's why you wanted to cover this, Portia. Like, yeah, no, I know.
no,
I
I
was
had
like,
no idea.
I thought like when we decided on this that was like one of the reasons you wanted to talk about it. Again, because like it's a lot directed at Natalie, who like is not
No,
fat
like I
like
wouldn't
at
even say really
all.
in a larger body. Like she's,
No, like, and I guess this is all subjective,
of course,
but it is weird to think like, oh, she's like the token like fat girl, but she's not.
yes.
It was yeah,
I didn't
but a,
remember that at all from having seen the movie in the past. But then this time I was like, oh wow, it's like all over the place. There's comments.
Hmm. And I think that happens like watching it, right? Like, it's on, you're playing with your kids, or you're, wrapping gifts, or you're doing whatever, and you're not like sitting down and like watching it like through a mental health lens. And after doing that with some things, we're like, ooh, like kind of over and over again at all of these like icky moments. I think like, unfortunately, like it's a little bit to the times. I don't think that fat phobia
yeah,
by any means has gone away currently, but I think like that's wildly inappropriate to have in a movie now. Even if it was a
mm,
person in a larger body, it's just like it was just constantly happening. I don't know. I kept like
yeah.
laughing and be like, "Are you guys? Did you know this?"
I think so when this movie came out, I was in high school, so I think I picked it up because like you're a high school girl, you're like body conscious, and that was the time I think of like maybe a little after like the Kate Moss era, but not that much after. I think that was the time of like Lindsay Lohan being in the news, Hilary Duff,
Yeah,
and Britney Spears, like a lot of comments on women's bodies, Jessica Simpson, like who's skinnier, who's bigger. And so I feel like it is of the times that someone like Natalie would be called like big, or she kept talking about her legs being like tree trunks. And I was like, we don't even see her legs. They're always in skirts. Like, what is going on? But so I feel like it's like right on the times, but again, like so icky to revisit, right? And then we even see like Billy Mack talking about his manager. He keeps talking about how fat he is, and like it's just so weird, right? And then I think you even see that with like Emma Thompson's character, and then the hot young receptionist
yeah.
who's like, flirting with her husband. They have different bodies. Obviously, they're different people at different stages of life, different ages. But it was like really interesting
Mhm.
in like
Yeah.
a ugh way.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's like definitely within the times. Even seeing Keira Knightley, like I just in it wasn't about her body per se, but I think like with the comments and then just like noticing her body, I know that obviously she's a very small person in a smaller body, but also one of the people who are like highlighted at the time, right, for being like maybe too
So
thin,
beautiful.
or this is the ideal body. So I think it was just
Right.
like an interesting like comparison with the two. I mean, I know her obviously from like Pirates of the
Yes.
Caribbean and stuff like that, but the cast is mostly English, right?
Yeah, yeah.
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 I think except for like the American ones. And even when like Colin goes to America to meet the hot girls, they're all like legit supermodels, right? But they all have similar bodies and
Yeah.
everything. And I was just thinking like Aurelia, the Portuguese woman who Colin Firth's character falls in love with, like when he finally shows back up to propose, remember the dad thinks he's wanting to propose to the other sister, who of course
Yeah.
has to be big, be in a larger body. So there is like a lot of fat phobia, like bleeding into this otherwise like super lovely movie. I feel like I also caught some homophobia, like especially with Billy Mack and the manager. I couldn't
Mhm.
tell if he really was like in love with him, like in a romantic way or more like a familial way. And I wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
There
The
was
dad, sorry, you go, Julia.
no, I was just gonna say the relationship was odd. The manager.
Very.
To say the least.
Yeah. So Daniel, to his, stepson Sam, was initially, or not, initially because it didn't change with him, but was like, I think really open to the idea if Sam was gay, right? He was like, who are you
Yes.
interested?
Yes.
I thought
Is it
that
a
was a
boy or
great
a girl?
I thought
So
that was
that was
great.
feel so great. Also for 2003, which probably the movie
Great.
was made in like 2000. So
Right.
that felt great. And then like, a couple scenes later, an hour later, it was like, oh, now that we're a little bit
Hmm.
homophobic. But again, like
Yeah.
feels kind of appropriate to the time.
And
I
maybe
feel like,
like Billy Mack in that generation would have
mhm,
been more like that.
yeah, no, I agree. That's true. So I think we should spend a little bit of time right on Sarah. So Sarah is at work, right? And she works with
Carl.
Carl, and Harry is her boss.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
That's the
like,
character played by Alan Rickman.
so there's all these connections. So Harry is like trying to get her to talk to Carl, to hang out with him because she's in love with him and the whole office knows.
I feel like that was
I was like,
inappropriate for a boss to
Oh, for sure.
intervene, right? I was like, oh, I don't.
I
At first, I thought maybe they were like related. Like, is that his sister or something? And then I was like, oh no, that's just her boss.
yeah, super
yeah,
inappropriate. I thought it was
yeah.
really like a nice little foreshadowy. I told Portia like I'm obsessed. When I think of that movie, all I think about is the cell phone ring, like that knocking, like. And when he first goes over to her to say something about how she loves Carl, he's like, "Turn off your phone." Like that was the first thing he said, and I thought that was just like. So it just speaks to how long this pattern with her brother has been going on, and like how intrusive it is in her world. I just thought it was an interesting, like, tiny
Yeah.
little hint to that.
hmm
It
Yeah. What do
seems
you
like her
think?
brother has schizophrenia. By the way she's sort of talking to
Yeah.
him when he calls and saying like, well, I don't know if I can talk to the Pope, let me see, I don't know about the aliens. And I just think like it's got to be incredibly hard to be the only surviving family member for someone with such a serious mental health condition. We see her go visit him in the psychiatric hospital, almost looks like he's institutionalized, like he lives there. I think she alludes to her parents no longer being around. I just think that's like an immense amount of pressure. And you can tell that she's feels like she can't not answer or, hang up the phone. Or we even see her like, unfortunately, like feeding his delusions by saying like, well, I don't know if I can get a hold of the Pope. Let me see, like she sort of, and I think that happens,
Yeah.
but it's such a tricky line to walk. I think even for providers, that's tricky to walk. How do you maintain like the sense of reality without challenging the patient too
Right.
much, where they get upset um, and feel alone? But then it can be risky to sort of go along with, like kind of like collude with their delusion. So I really felt for her.
Mm.
It was like
Julia, what do you think?
when she was like when she had her moment with Carl and then the phone rang and she's like sitting trying to like stay in the moment but like not, and then she like gets off the guy and like it was just so sad. I just felt so bad for her. It's like that
Mhm.
pull of like family versus your future and kind of where you like the past and the future pull thing. It was sad. It's a heavy
What
moment.
would
I like
you
that.
work on her with in therapy if she was your patient?
Boundaries.
How would you do it?
Well, I guess I would want to understand her history more. Like, where did she learn that she's responsible for all of this? And like, where did she learn her kind of people pleasing, prioritizing everybody else? And then just how does that serve her? How does it not? And if there are other supports that could be involved with her brother's care that she could utilize more. Like, just trying to help her feel less alone in it and like see that she's a person too. Because I think that often, especially women, grow up feeling like they're not seen, right? Like in the world, in a lot of places, and it's easy to like be easy, like to just go along with the flow and just do what people need you to do. And I just feel like that's sort of, she's filled this role for her brother because no one else is there to do it, and she loves him. And it's like she doesn't even see that she's a person too. And I feel like that happens so often with women. So that's what I would kind of want to
Mhm.
work with her on. It's like seeing herself as an individual also, and like who is she and how can she exist and support her brother without one being more important. What about you guys? How would you
Right.
approach it?
That sounds good to me. Yeah. No, I mean, I think like really just trying to see herself as your needs are also important, or like it's you're allowed to do both. I think that's really hard for people who are taking care of a sick loved one, in any terms of the word sick, is just like how can you also live your life and have needs and wants fulfilled while also, you know, assisting in a way that is helpful and beneficial to you and the person you're providing support for.
Mhm.
Or otherwise it just leads to burnout. And like, I think she, is more than burned out, but it's like her life
But
kind of doesn't exist.
yeah, it's like being his sister is her whole identity.
Mhm.
You
Yes.
know, like when you try to think about her identity, like that is 95% of it. And in situations like this, I also start to think about what is she getting out of it? Like, is there something where she's feeling important? She's feeling powerful. She's feeling altruistic. She's feeling good. Like, this is how she's feeling good. We don't know what her early relationship was like with her parents, or if there was like some talk about like estate planning or what'll happen to him, like when they're not here. I talk to a lot of like adult patients who might have a sibling with special needs or some other medical or mental health condition as their parents age. Like, okay, what's going to happen? And that's a lot to take
Yeah.
on. And I think with her, I mean, I don't know if she would show up to therapy, right? Like, I don't know if she wants to change. It kind of seems like she doesn't. Like, she had Carl like right there, and he is like beautiful, right? Like whoa, like she's been pining after him for what, 2 days, 7 months, 6 hours, 2 minutes, or whatever it was. He's there. And like that's just that pull to her brother and that whole situation so powerful. I don't know if she'd show up, but I think I'd also work with her in addition to the boundary stuff for sure, like normalizing all of the negative feelings she might be suppressing related to sort of being expected to fulfill this role, and
And
just kind of normalizing it.
you see it in that moment when she gets like he leaves when they're in the office and like what's his name, Carl walks out, and then she's like having her moment of like being upset, and then the phone rings and she's like
Yeah.
hi, like it's just so.
I know. I thought it was also kind of weird the how she would refer to her brother, like darling, or
Yeah.
it was like it seemed almost like romantic, and I don't think I'm not trying to imply it was, but it doesn't seem like a way you'd call like your sibling. I don't know. There was something about that to me like spoke to how their relationship is like really
Enmeshed.
bigger. Yeah, really enmeshed. That's the word.
Yeah, it like rides the line between almost appearing right like inappropriately romantic or like parent child,
That's what I felt like.
um
Yeah.
like, darling or
Yes.
sweetie or sweetheart, but I think she
Yeah.
also
Like,
did say babe. Did she say babe a lot?
yes. Yes.
Hey babe.
Yeah.
Which was like,
I'm
I mean, again, but like it felt really like parent child, and then when she's in the institution, hospital, home with him, and I thought that she on the other hand, does a really good job at like de-escalating him, right? So he kind of becomes physical. He
Almost
like kind of
violent.
tries to hit
Yeah.
her. A person comes out to kind of assist, and she like is able to kind of talk him down and like seemingly to bring him back into the moment, which I'm not surprised, because she's probably been doing it for years and knows his everything on how to assist him, but really
I
hard.
also I also didn't love that the movie is perpetuating this false narrative that people with psychotic disorders are violent towards others, which sometimes that happens. But we know far and away people living with psychotic disorders are far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. And again, I think as much as I love this movie as a movie, there's a lot of criticisms I have from mental health, viewpoints, and that's a big one for me.
Yeah. Do you think
Like
people
he
were institutionalized, like as we talked about, in other episodes with like, the 1850s, 1940s, but like, do you think in 2003 someone would be living somewhere long term with schizophrenia? It's like, right, they should be able to kind of manage it on their own with outside supports. I mean, it's a different country. I don't know, but it felt like,
I think
I don't
there's,
know.
yeah, I think I'm not sure what the landscape is like in the UK, but I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
even now, even after the deinstitutionalization movement, there are still people who are ill enough where they do require like group homes or things like that. We don't know
it
what
looked a
type
little
of setting it was.
institutional for like a residential. Like I felt like it was
Yeah,
like trying to be both, but it
Mhm.
felt a little hospitally.
yeah. I was like, is this a forensic hospital? Like, has he been violent or in the past? Like, is that why he's here? Like, we don't really know.
That's
Yeah. But they're I think the clearest on the surface mental health, right? Like, um, coupling of the movie. So I don't know. I mean, does she ever end up with Carl? Like,
No,
yeah,
I don't
I
think
think
so.
he's
I feel
probably moving on.
pessimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that final like lingering glance between the two of them was so sad to
yeah.
me.
Hmm. And like, as he should, right? Like, if I'm Carl's therapist and you're kind of also secretly pining over this woman for years, and you finally,
Make your move.
do something, which is awesome. And then like you kind of see that it's just probably not going to go anywhere, and this is the case, like, processing with him how to move forward and find someone else who can be more available currently to him. And obviously I
Yeah.
hope Sarah gets there, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be quick.
Yeah, I mean that's such intense rejection to literally be like half naked in the bed and she can't stop answering the phone like and you're just sort of finally connecting. I mean that's just such intense
Yeah.
rejection, right? Like I think it's healthier for him probably to process that disappointment and move on. But I think that's a great segue into us also talking about like all the times we see people trying to make
Yes.
romantic love connections in the movie, right? Like there's so many of them. And it just, I think, really highlights like how vulnerable you have to be to put yourself out there and how do each of them cope with, you know, either someone taking them up on it or rejecting them and how that's so dependent on like their individual personality styles.
It makes me think of the naked couple,
Yes.
um, just in how they're like naked and like,
Are they like
insinuating
stand-ins
sex.
for
Yes.
porno?
Yeah, I don't think
Right.
it's a
Okay.
porno. I think it's like an R movie. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's porno, but like they're. I saw someone talking on TikTok about how like that does happen, but they're not naked. So like if when you are using stand-ins to like do cues and stuff like that, like they might be doing the same moves though.
Yeah.
Like on top of each other or kind of like humping each other, but they wouldn't be nude. And so I thought it was so funny, right? He's like always, he alludes to having a hard time asking people out or like being shy.
Yeah.
And first of all, I'm like, how did you get comfortable in this role? But
I was
I
okay,
know.
wondering
great.
too. It just seems so not their personalities to be like
It's
both of
so
them.
funny.
It
I
was
know they're both so quiet and polite. He's like, "Let me warm up
yes.
my hands for you. Is this okay?" It's so sweet. Like it's also like kind of a nice. I don't know if I think consent is like too far, but you know what I mean. Like it's kind of a nice depiction of like checking
Yeah.
in with your partner. And it was such a funny juxtaposition that
Yes.
as he's saying what Portia was just saying, they're like totally naked, simulating a sexual encounter,
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's like, I was finally able to ask you out. Like, it seems like maybe he just needs to be naked from now on in order to ask people out. It's like, I think emotions, of course, are vulnerable, but it's like
Oh,
also
yeah.
what's more vulnerable than
Right,
being
exactly.
unclothed? Like your body's on display.
I think there's even like a reality show out there now. Have you heard of this reality show? It has multiple
Yes.
seasons where you have, I forget what it's called, but it's like the whole premise is you start by like looking at each other's genitals or like
What?
you're dating naked. Yeah, you're
Yes.
like dating naked before you even start to like get to know each other. And that's the whole like quote unquote premise that like, let's just be as vulnerable as we
But wait, the
can.
unveiling is just a shot of the genitals?
I heard
Yes.
this. Yes.
It's from the UK, so another
Yes.
UK show.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating and
And I think it has like I think it's in like multiple seasons. It's in like season 4 or 6 or something. So I heard someone else talking about on another podcast. So I don't know the
oh
facts,
my gosh,
but
I have to find
I know.
that.
I know.
Yeah. And I wonder if we heard the same podcast of Laughing Now, because I was like, they were saying how, people are getting like rejected for like all, just obviously like face value genitals. And they were talking, the one I heard was about like, the person searching for love is a female. So there's, she's heterosexual. So there's all these men that she's looking at and their penises, and, like one's too small, but one's too big. And like, but then they say like they're not, what they were kind of critiquing the show for is that they're saying like they're not being like honest with like, no, your penis is too small or your penis is too big. They're like, oh yeah, I just didn't really get a good vibe. And it's like, no, you only saw his penis. So like, say what you're gonna say about, I don't know. Anyway,
I just,
another UK show.
that is
Isn't that wild?
amazing.
It's so wild to me like that like someone had the idea for this show and someone like a lot of people like ran with it. And that like people are consuming it so much that they've had multiple
Yeah,
seasons.
that's wild.
And then like Portia, I think your point's totally valid, but then I'm thinking about this woman, like, what are you supposed to say?
I know.
And the podcast I was listening to was like a woman commenting on an episode where a man who is heterosexual is looking at a bunch of vaginas. And the woman was like, I had no idea they look so different. So it's just.
In a way, I feel like that part is kind of normalizing and helpful,
Yeah.
because I think that that's something a lot of, like, I don't know, I've had clients talk about that and like feeling self-conscious about that aspect of their body. So like, I feel like there could be some normalization that happens, but
Sure.
Right?
I don't know how
I'm
you
also
find
just like,
love
what
in
is it
a
on?
genital,
Like, is
but
this on HBO? I was like,
I think
'cause
it's
even
on some kind of
watching-
streaming service. It can't be
Okay.
like just on like basic cable,
Right.
I hope, in the news.
Yeah.
Especially I would think in like Britain where they're a little more buttoned up, stereotypically than Americans.
Oh, maybe not. Not
yeah, maybe
anymore.
not. I don't think that would fly on.
Maybe we're like shattering stereotypes,
Yeah, maybe.
But anyways,
right.
getting back to
Yeah.
Love Actually.
So let's talk about Karen and Harry.
That scene where she's so excited to open her
I
present.
know.
And it's the CD, which like if she hadn't seen the necklace, maybe
What a
would have
nice
been
way.
really thoughtful, right? But she did see it. And like just when she goes away and cries and then has to come back and like rally the kids and be excited to
And my
protect
heart
them.
broke
Like
for her in that moment.
every time I see that I cry. Like
Yeah.
every time I just think like, and I just think that it's such a great depiction of like what it's like to be a mom
I was gonna say
and try to
motherhood.
like,
Yeah.
like have your own experiences, but then be putting your kids first. So powerful. It really is just,
Yeah, I cried.
Yeah, me too. Like she really like
She didn't
captures
deserve
it
it.
so raw. Like it's so raw and real, and you could just feel it. Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
a video that was saying, or she was interviewed, Emma Thompson was, about like that scene and why it's so powerful. And I guess that at the time, she had found out that her current partner was having an affair with the
geez.
woman who plays Bellatrix in Harry Potter. I forget her name.
Helena Bonham Carter?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, and Emma Thompson is also in Harry Potter. She plays Professor Trelawney. So I just thought that was interesting. And now they're like friends, but they went
well,
on to have like a 5-year relationship, Helen and her ex. So she says that it was like so
really
real,
real.
which is why I think you can watch the movie, multiple times and still feel it.
Yes,
Feel
because it's
it.
Um,
I
so
know.
real. Like,
It's so
mhm.
raw. And I think like what beautiful art, right? Like you just said, Portia, to watch it multiple times and still feel it. Because, like, whether we all face betrayal in our lives in one flavor or another, like, even if it's not like that flavor, like, you just get it and you
yes.
just feel it with her. And, like, just seeing her, like, cry to Joni Mitchell, the CD he just gave her, and then, like, dab your tears, let's go with the Christmas lobsters. It's
And
just,
I feel like even if you
whew.
don't have kids, like that feeling of like you have to button it up and like go back out into the world, like I feel like is something that everybody kind of
Oh, yeah. Even
experiences.
like going to work after getting bad
Absolutely.
news, you know?
It's just, I think, one of the hardest things we as humans have to do. And like, which is, feels to me very Western culture. Like, oh, you got to go to work though. Like,
Right.
we have to
Right.
kind of shelve our humanity and kind of get back on the wheel. And I
I
think
think it's
also,
mhm.
as like mental health professionals, I think it's, you know, having something tragic happen in your life and then, kind of trying to figure out when to come back to work or how you can show up
Yeah.
for your patients or what patients are going to be triggering because maybe a similar thing just happened to you. Like, I think I'm not going to say is especially hard because I don't want to quantify it, but like, I think it's very difficult to do, which I think we ask
Oh,
too
yeah.
much of people to do
Yes.
that.
I totally agree. And I'm not sure, like, again, in our culture, which, like, if you're working for a corporation and your mother dies, maybe you get 48 hours leave to, like, go to the funeral and come back, right? Like, there's not a lot of room for grief in our culture. Um, and I'm just thinking now of, like, in the British culture, like, I'll never forget seeing, like, William and Harry, like, playing to the crowds at their mom's funeral when they were kids, right? I just think it's like, we're not good at grief, like in
No.
general, and these cultures we're talking about. But yeah, I think especially as therapists, or mental health professionals, like, you do want to show up for your patients, and, like, at least I feel like, responsibility to be there
Of
for them and be
course.
consistent as much as you can. And, like, you have to keep your own humanity in mind, and, like, knowing where to draw that line is really hard, and I think comes with time and experience. Um, and from modeling, right? Like, you have to have good supervisors or teachers who also model that and keep sending the message, like, it's okay and healthy to have your own
Yeah.
boundaries and to have, recognize your own humanity.
Mhm.
I felt like
Yeah.
the little kid Sam did a good job when he was like, I know I'm supposed to be thinking about mom, but I'm thinking about I'm in love. It's just like
Joanna.
that's real.
Ah,
Like I think people feel so guilty feeling anything other than grief, and it's
yes.
captures like there's a lot of feelings at once, and that's okay.
Yes. Did you, Julia, watch the show Shrinking by any
Yeah,
chance? Oh, we
I
love
love
that
that.
show. But also, like, that, there was a scene there with the daughter
Yeah,
who she had that moment where she was, like, looking at a picture and noticed how happy she looked, and then she felt instantly guilty. Like,
guilty.
how can I be happy when my mom died? Like, it's like forgetting them. That's so common and complicated. And
Absolutely.
you're right. I think this was another scene that really nailed it on the head.
Mhm. Yeah. Their relationship was beautiful, I thought. Like Sam and, his stepdad, like
Yeah.
mom had deceased and we don't know
Do we
about,
know about Dad?
I don't think so. Um, or at least I didn't catch it,
Yeah, I
but
didn't catch anything on it.
he just like
I
really
think we
shows up
just
for him as like, I don't know, just like in a beautiful way that I feel like we couldn't even like try to make it better like as a therapist. Oh well, he
yeah.
could have done this. It's like he just hits in every way, like giving him space, like letting him drum, respecting his signs,
Yeah.
and then like really fostering, no, it's okay to be excited about something too, or yeah, like let's focus on your love. Like it was just so beautiful as like a step
It really
parent.
was.
It really was. And I love how he like validates like you put it in the notes like something about how awful love is or the most painful.
A total agony of being
Yeah,
in
total
love.
agony of falling in love.
Right? Like Liam Neeson's character, I think his name's Daniel. they're sitting on that bench and he's like, something's wrong with Sam. He won't come out of his room. His mother just died. Like, we don't know how long he's been in the picture. Like, if it's a
Right.
short time, if he's like raised him, we don't really know. I think it's clear he's adopted him, but you can tell he's like not sure what to do. And of course he feels that way. And then they're on the bench and you can tell he's like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, are you doing drugs? Like, what's going on? And then he says, I'm in love. And he's so relieved. But then the little boy's like, how can you be relieved? This is so agonizing. And it was just so beautiful and funny.
And then he was so
and
valiant. He was like, yes, you're right. Yep. Like, he like heard him and adjusted. It was really sweet.
Which is so
and like
great.
young love is just beautiful and an important way that we learn, right? Like about feelings and heartbreak and how to tolerate when someone doesn't like you back. And like, it's just, I don't know, like it's so important for us to learn. But then I think I would imagine also just wanting to protect your kids from like, right, those really hard feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like how beautiful that he encouraged him to like go for it, even though Joanna was leaving. He wasn't like, oh, what's the point? She's leaving. He was like, no, like, and I have to imagine that was influenced by his own grief, having
I
just
was about
lost
to
his
say that as you
wife.
said that. I thought about the grief parallel.
That he's like, no, you still
It's
love,
worth
even
it.
if you're gonna lose. Yeah, what a like beautiful message to send a little boy who's somewhere in there grieving himself.
Yeah. And then Emma or Karen, when after the play, when she says, like, what would you do? And then she kind of says, when you find like the necklace, and
I
he
was
says, oh,
so
I was
happy that she
foolish.
brought it up that way.
Yes. And like quickly, like, I don't know. I mean, it's a kind of impossible situation of knowing what to do, but it seemed like it was best for her to kind of just bring it up. And then he was obviously taken aback. And then, I'm such a fool. And she's like, no, but you made a fool out of me.
Yes.
And I was like, yes, like that's right. That's like the ultimate betrayal, or that's I think just quantifies her emotions of feeling foolish, right? Like, I trusted you, you made little of our relationship, and etc.
Like
But
that sense of humiliation, like after that kind of
And
betrayal.
yes, and the fact that he was looking at the necklace with Mr. Bean wrapping it up, so in such a funny, dramatic way, while she was off Christmas shopping, probably for their kids or probably his mom or something,
Right.
and he's doing that enraged me. And you have to know that, like, as she gets the CD and she's putting it all together, she probably realized what was going on. And like, oh, so cruel. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, you don't, it's like bad enough to be like having an affair or an emotional affair, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it got physical with this secretary or not, but you have to do it when she's there with you.
Right.
Like, go to the store
And
later by
your kids were
yourself.
there.
Yeah. It's like so gross. Oh,
yeah. And Mia, I think that's her name, Mia.
Yeah.
I think so.
Like, she was very overt with her advances, right? Like sitting in the chair,
Yes.
like opening her legs. I was like,
legs.
okay, that's just definitely a visual. And then I thought, which was really bold for both Harry and Mia, was at the Christmas party, right? Karen is there, and she's like asking him to dance, and like,
What? Yeah.
I was just like, wow, like, and Karen seemed to just be like, what, kind of trusting the relationship, whatever. Like, she makes a comment of something like, not be careful, but something like that. But she, it seems like then she really trusts Harry. Like, this is Mia.
Right.
Like, Mia is, making advances, and it's inappropriate, sure, but like, she trusts Harry. And then the fact, right, to then find out that that's not the case, I think was obviously just like heartbreaking. But
and again, like, so humiliating to do that in front of everyone at a Christmas party. Like, it's just so cruel. It's so cruel. So I'm dying to know what you guys would do if if the couple came to you for couples therapy, or if each individually came to you. Like, how would you help them navigate it? Because at the end, we see Harry comes back from traveling somewhere. They're greeting him at the airport, and she's, Karen isn't like super warm and kissy to say hello to him, but she's there picking him up. So it's not clear to me, like, are they staying together? Are they working on it? Are they going to separate? Like, how's it all going to unfold?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think couples, I would imagine I don't work frequently or ever really with couples, but like it would be just seeing like what are their goals? Do they have a goal? Like,
Mm-hmm.
can they even think? Are they even in a place to say we'd like to try to get past this, or are you getting to a goal, and you're just kind of processing what happened? I feel like I've worked separately with both parties. Someone who has been unfaithful in a relationship, and someone who has been, the Karen. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting, I think, to work with both, just because I don't know, like I think it just helps you understand why it happens. And
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
really like to excuse the behavior. Ultimately, it's a betrayal
Yeah.
of trust and it's lying. But I think it's really just about getting people to see if there can be a repair, or like where they want to go next, and if they can get through it, or like what does it mean? Does it mean that the relationship's over, or does it mean that something's going on that can be fixed?
Mm-hmm.
I don't
I don't
know.
do couples either, but I feel like I would start with like, what do you think you want? Like, what are we working towards? And but I don't know. I don't do
Mm,
couples, so maybe you wouldn't ask
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
and I
know.
think in situations like this, like you want to say it's so clear, like you should leave him, like that's awful, but it's rarely that clear or that
Right.
easy. I think especially when you have kids involved, like you could be so mad at him, but still want the kids to love their dad. And I
Right.
think Karen would be the kind of mom where she would walk that line, right? Like we saw it, the way she sort of
Yeah.
pulled herself together and got those lobsters to the school, that she's not going to like badmouth him in front of the kids, nor should she. But it's just not that simple to
No.
be like, oh, I'm just going to leave. And sometimes people feel a lot of shame when they don't want to leave and when they want to stay. And
Absolutely.
how do you work through it? It's just so tricky.
No, I agree, and I think it's also important, right, to like keep your own judgments, which we do, but to ourselves, like how could you do that?
Yes.
Right.
Not saying that, or why
Right.
don't you just leave him? Not going to say that.
Yeah.
It's like having that place of not being a friend, right, or like a family member, but like a therapist
Right.
who's really just exploring feelings. Sometimes it's hard.
It's
Yes.
so
Um,
hard. I think
yeah,
especially
but
with even like sometimes I always have to keep in mind, like even if you're not saying it verbally, sometimes your facial expressions or reactions can
Right.
rat you out, right? And like you want to just stay neutral because you don't know which way they're going and you want your patient to feel like comfortable and that they can be totally open. And sometimes they're really pulling for you. They really want to know what you think. It's
Yes.
like almost like they want to relinquish their responsibility on you and they want you to make the decision for them. And it gets tricky. That's why I think couples therapy is so hard.
Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
hard.
We have to find someone, a good one. Well, I guess a good one, but someone to have on here. I have a lot of questions for them.
Yeah.
We should do like a movie, I guess. But all right, who else
Well,
do we want to cover as we wrap up?
as
Anyone
we
else
wrap
we want to
up,
hit on?
I think definitely Natalie and the Prime Minister.
Mm. And the
Yeah.
harassment
Ugh.
from the U.S. president.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Bathroom was so yuck. Like he just
Yeah,
his everything about him just made my skin crawl.
It was
I
perfect though,
know.
Oh, it
like
was
in this
I
so
role.
know.
perfect.
And I was like, I feel like this is how people see Americans as just like takers,
Yeah.
like in a lot of ways. Like I feel like he's not,
Yeah.
doing us any favors here.
hmm So Hugh Grant, or what's his name? His
Prime
character,
Minister.
Prime. Yeah, I think it's just
Prime
PM.
Minister.
So he like right sees past Natalie's large body and like wants to be
Allegedly.
with
Mm-hmm.
her. um, and I think it's like sweet. He obviously is very like work oriented, and he kind of like notices she's really nice, and he's kind of like doesn't realize that he's into her. I think until he sees her being sexually harassed or assaulted by the U.S. president, and then he kind of intervenes and has that big moment where he
Yeah.
stands up to him, and it seems like all the staff and the UK are all like really pleased. So I don't know. What did you guys think of his chase of going on to her neighborhood?
I don't know.
I thought it was kind of icky that he fired her at some point
Yeah.
and then like found out where she lived and swooped her off her feet. Like again, it's like, okay, on the one hand, it's like, oh wow, he really loves her so much that he's knocking on every door trying to find her. It's humorous, but Like it kind of was icky and maybe some red flags. Again, I didn't get the sense that his character is like a true malignant narcissist, but it could go that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, a little bit of love bombing, maybe out of nowhere. He's in a position of power over her. Um, they're hot and heavy really quick. I think I'm over analyzing it, but there were
But
some
that's what
things
we
where I
do
was like,
here.
right.
They reminded me of the other couple, right? So Keira Knightley and her recent husband, and
Hmm.
That's an
to do
interesting
Mark.
couple.
So I was, I think everyone probably assumes that he's going to be into um, Kira's
Peter.
husband, Peter,
Yeah.
and when he's not, I was like, whoa, kind of
Yeah.
shocked. But I just like thought it was icky.
Yes, like I feel
Yeah.
like this movie, there's a lot of relationships where it's like, is it sweet or creepy?
But
Like,
I feel like isn't that sort of not love? Love is not creepy, but like the challenge of love, right? Like there is
yes,
what feels really romantic to one person can feel really invasive to another, and like that balance of like what is appropriate, what's not, like how does this land on this person versus what is their intention, and I think it does a good job of kind of depicting the complexity of that.
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
But
Yeah,
yeah, there's
definitely. I
definitely
think,
parts.
especially, I think the scene when he has the cue cards, which is like such a famous scene now, so iconic. And like I remember watching it in high school, being like, "Oh my god, that's so sweet! It's so creative." This was like back in the day when when you'd ask
Yes.
someone to go to prom, it was like this big thing. But now as an adult, when I'm rewatching it, I'm just like, oh, like I'm trying to imagine being Keira Knightley's character, like watching the wedding video and
Yeah.
it dawning on you that it's all you, and you're just like, oh, how
I thought she
closely
did
have
a
you been
great job
admiring
showing that.
me?
Like you could
Mm-hmm.
see her
Yeah.
face go from like a really like genuine smile to like a like
Yeah, and it's like, are you gonna now like capture me in your basement, or can I get out of this house?
I was
Yeah.
confused by her running after him though.
Me too.
Like I didn't get that. And they never really explained it and I didn't really
Mm.
get that.
Right.
Me
Like, was
too.
it a like a goodbye acknowledgement? Like, almost of like did it kind of put a period at the end of like, oh, that was sweet, and like I don't know, I think a little inappropriate, but like did it end there, or are now they going to go off and kind of have this like secret affair together? Like it just didn't make sense with the context because she had always thought that he didn't like her, but now
Hmm.
she's like interested or in love. Like it was just kind of confusing. I didn't
Yeah.
know what it meant.
Yeah, that's actually like such a great example of reaction formation where you behave opposite, I think, than like how you're really feeling.
Yeah.
Like that's the guy's doing that, right? Like he really loves her, so he's like so rude and cold to her, and she's like, "Oh, he really doesn't like me." I know, I didn't understand, and like she just got married, and like she could have just hugged him.
Right. Like the fact that it was a kiss and like the way she ran at it just left me like, are they gonna go back to this? But it's funny when you say how when you were in high school, because I remember that scene in my mind. I always thought it was so sweet. Like it was like this
Right.
iconic love moment. And then this time when I
Yeah.
watched it, I was like,
Huh.
asshole. Like you
Right. I
swore
know.
at your best friend's house. Like,
I know, like on Christmas Eve or something. Like, and I know I feel so bad for Peter that he has no idea all this is going on. It puts like Peter and Juliet in such a weird spot. But especially Juliet, like it seems like really, it almost seems like punishment for her. It's like, and I don't think he means it that way, but now she knows this about him. What is she
what does she do
supposed to
with
do
that?
with
Like
it?
such a
Right.
Yeah.
burden.
Right. But then she goes and kisses him. So I'm really confused.
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
love them to do like a sequel now and just see like use all the same actors and actresses except Alan Rickman, RIP, and just see like where'd they end up.
Mm-hmm.
You
People would
know,
watch. That's
I
our
know.
Yeah.
free movie advice of this episode is
Yeah.
they could make a part two,
Do a
and
sequel.
yep, and hopefully it's less fat phobic, and we'll take it from there, or we'll see. I don't know. But anyway, as we wrap up, we want to just thank everyone so much for joining us today in this month of December. We hope you are going to have a good holiday season if you celebrate the holidays. And we do give a little bit of tips throughout these episodes of just like having boundaries with family and friends, and kind of how to navigate some difficult I don't know, potential situations with
Yes.
gatherings and sometimes alcohol and all the things that can happen with that. But
yeah, I mean, holidays are notoriously stressful for everyone, whether you struggle with your mental health or not. They just are. So, yeah, keep tuning in to hear more about our take. We're so grateful you joined us today, Julia. Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
having me. It's really fun.
It was super fun. And we will catch you next Monday with a new episode. And you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can watch our videos now at Analyze Scripts Podcast.
thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye.